The sitting is resumed. Please be seated. The next speaker on our list, honorable members, is the Honorable Bheri Ramsarran. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me first of all to congratulate you on your ascension to the post of Speaker, having joined with my other colleagues in the House to recognize the good work we expect of you and the good work you've been doing so far. Allow me also to join with my other colleagues in expressing condolences to the Honorable Cathy Hughes on her recent loss. And I must pause here to expand a little bit. This loss is close to us because it occurs with one of the members of our House. But it's avoidable as it is sad. And it is avoidable as it is sad. I am pained. So we need to, in passing, to take pause and decide as a nation on both sides of this aisle what we will do to stop this. I don't want to use unparliamentary language by saying nonsense, but I suppose in this degree I can do so. We need to put an end to this carnage. We need to put an end to the abuse of alcohol, which puts at risk valuable citizens like this. But, Ms. Hughes, my condolences, and we need to join forces to end this madness. I'd also like, in my opening remarks, to congratulate the Honorable Barajagdi on his unanimous election to the post of head of or leader of the opposition, and on his return to the National Assembly. This latter development was particularly welcomed by the youth of our country. Allow me also to recognize that there are several new debutant parliamentarians. I'd like to welcome them. We've already heard some of them, and we see that we definitely are going to be having a good mix, a good interaction. I would have liked a few more young people, but we will make do with what they are, and those of us who are not so young will try to assist them in their youthful endeavors. Allow me particularly to welcome all debutants, but more especially the Honorable Clive Jagan. It is good to have a Jagan back in the House. Welcome. It is good to have a Jagan back in the House. Mr. Speaker, recall that Guyanese a few months ago on 11th of May came out in their thousands determined to ensure the continued expansion of wealth creation, inclusivity, personal, family, and community empowerment, upliftment, and well-being initiated in October '92. Guyanese came out in their thousands on 11th of May to return to office the PPPC, which had lifted the country out of the morass, helplessness, hopelessness, and haplessness, which had stifled the nation, the country. Up till then, Guyanese in '92 had finally been able to free themselves of the stench of rigged elections, of corruption, of nepotism and discrimination in the immediate post-independence decades. They were determined on May 11, 2015 to return the PPPC government that had liberated our society, infused it with energy and hope and with dignity and with renewed dynamism. The PPPC had initiated, or rather had inherited, an economy which could only afford less than 1% of the then PNC budget for the health vote. That's way back in '92, '93. But has now bequeathed the current administration an economy which can allow the Honorable Winston Jordan to allocate a whopping 10.5% of this year's budget. I almost said his budget. This year's budget, which is also, incidentally, Mr. Speaker, vastly larger overall than the last budget of the PNC of 1992. These hopes and aspirations of May 11th were shattered by the stout refusal of GCOM to conduct the recount, which should have been automatic in the circumstances of such close results as flowed from the May 11th elections. And this, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, could have been completed in a day, and that might well have put us on a better path of national reconciliation, and the national conversation might have ended less acrimoniously. These same thousands of Guyanese stood dumbstruck as the extravagant swearing-in and subsequent inauguration of Mr. Granger took place. The National Stadium at Providence hosts this grand inauguration, and it is the first confirmation of the suspicions of Guyanese masses of the extravagance that would follow a APNU victory. The recent 100% increase, Mr. Speaker, in the emoluments of the coalition cabinet members should not then come as a surprise, although we still shudder at it. The inauguration pomp and ceremony was also instructive in another way, Mr. Speaker. It was the same PNC APNU AFC outfit which had maligned the National Stadium, created division around this issue, and had harassed the Jagdeo administration at every step in the construction of that transformational project. As a matter of fact, every transformation project of successive PPPC administration were pillaged. The Hope Canal, the Specialty Hospital, among others. The Hope Canal, Mr. Speaker, recently proved its worth, quietly proved its worth. No pomp and ceremony, nobody opening up and having ribbons cut, because that was the Jagdeo Relief Canal, another Jagdeo project. So the Hope Canal has proved its worth already, although it has not officially been launched, and I'm told that it's only partly operational. Now, when it, at that time, took off an ocean of water, avoiding massive flooding of the extensive areas of Mahaika and Maikoni, which it served. And I hear Ms. Wade vigorously endorsing the Hope Canal. Thank you, my dear, from across the way. It was pressed into early service for this purpose. It also prevented the flooding of thousands of pit latrines and septic tanks. This is the point I want to make. This, in turn, honorable members, prevented the emergence of diarrheal diseases expected or usually expected during such heavy rainfall and flooding. The distress and misery that these diseases usually unleash on our vulnerable children in previous times simply did not arise. Simply did not arise. The Hope Canal. Hope, that's the good word. This public health function, Mr. Speaker, this public health function of the Hope Canal is easily overlooked, but it's valued, and it will continue to be with us for the continuous existence of this canal. The savings from medical interventions avoided is obvious. The suffering avoided is welcome. The success story of the PPPC initiative will continue to contribute to the reduction of diseases and improve quality of life beyond the other obvious benefits which the canal brings. Mr. Speaker, this administration now must provide adequately for its upkeep. I did not hear much reference to it, nor did I see in my quick perusal of the other documents, the 3 tomes, I did not see much allocated to that. Mr. Speaker, the much anticipated and vaunted Specialty Hospital is another transformational project. This Specialty Hospital is erased from the 2015 budget. What a shame. What a shame. The budget presented by the Honorable Mr. Winston Jordan has only a paltry sum for closure of project. This, Mr. Speaker, is myopic. The closure of this project is extremely myopic. It is vindictiveness overcoming reason and enlightenment. To quote the Honorable Clive Jagan, this is pig-headedness. Mr. Speaker, over $4 million US has already been invested in site preparation and specialized weight-bearing foundations, which has a specific footprint of the Specialty Hospital. And as I would not reply to the noises, but I must remind you, Mr. Speaker, that for measured works that have been paid for are measurable on the ground. And I'm sorry that the Prime Minister is not here, because I was particularly disappointed with his interventions from this side of the House when he was here, when he kept saying that there's only bush on the site. There are over 1,800 piles driven, and a lot of other preparatory work done, Mr. Speaker. Any honest person will want to know, why should we want to abandon $4 million in the ground? What are we going to do with it? As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, when I heard in the speech over the television, as I looked at the Honorable Jordan, I said, this speech, this budget is bereft of new ideas. What should be done? Get this project done and add to it. Your budget should say Specialty Hospital Plus. The Jamaicans have jumped ahead. They've gone ahead, they're building it. Some of the market we might should have been gotten was gone. So your new ideas, the Honorable Mr. Jordan, through you, Mr. Speaker, should be, not only will we complete this project, but we will outdo the PPPC. It will be a Specialty Hospital Plus. That's why we specially selected that choice piece of prime real estate, large. It is larger than the footprint that we've now set up. We need to establish it and extend it. And we need to build on what has been existent. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Health would have already been able to see from the documents left the epidemiological transition in which Guyanese now are developing other diseases. Only during the last debate, while we were discussing this said program, this said project, we heard of the collapse of a certain military officer in his early 40s who was exercising. Conk out. So, Mr. Speaker, it's incumbent on the administration to complete this special project, and that is why I take some difference with the chapter, or rather the paragraph in that paragraph in the minister's speech where he refers to getting rid of this capital project. Mr. Speaker, I would like now to move to another aspect of the budget presentation. The budget speech, Mr. Speaker, refers to Health Vision 2020. Health Vision 2020. Health Vision 2020, which here the Honorable Minister says the government will invest significantly in the health of our people to realize the successful implementation of Health Vision 2020. Well, here it is. And I was one of the main authors, along with a multitude of other support staff, including a multitude of people from the Ministry of Finance, for example, and other ministries, a collective work. So I'm happy that the Honorable Mr. Jordan, the Honorable Minister of Finance, sees the wisdom in looking at what is the roadmap until 2020. It is being done in 2 phases, up to 15, and then up to from 15 to 20. So, Mr. Speaker, we like to recognize that, but what we like to say, we do not see the vigor in the budget, we do not see the allocations which should be ready, which should be there to support some of the pronouncements. For example, it says a strategic plan for programmatic areas within the health sector will inform our actions over the next 5 years. It further goes on to say that these actions are aimed at arresting non-communicable diseases, or the NCDs, eliminating maternal infant mortality, and providing universal health coverage. Mr. Speaker, I want to note, and the minister should be aware of this, that if we want to address or eliminate maternal deaths, we need to have blood products. Only recently, and probably currently, there's a blood shortage. There's a blood shortage. I'm not gloating at this. I'm just pained. Because only last year, the Ministry of Health was able to harvest the largest ever number or amount of volume or units of blood donated, 11,148. And it is shocking now that we have blood shortages. I'm certain the minister will do all he can to prevent this. This is an unacceptable plunge. It is an unacceptable plunge. I noticed, for example, that there have been certain changes in the ministerial office. some of the persons who were there were exactly placed there and tasked with working closely with the ministry, with the blood bank, to ensure adequate harvesting, large numbers. For example, a certain call center usually gives us lots of that. A certain religious organization over the river in CI gives us a lot. A certain school, a private school, gives us a lot. Where are these efforts? So, Mr. Speaker,
Honourable Member, you have 10 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I will be finished long before that. Mr. Speaker, it means that the dismantling of certain aspects of the ministry with the change of a new administration has redounded to the disbenefit, if I can quote, if I can invent a word, or to the harm of the Guyanese public, especially potentially our women, pregnant women. Now, I further would like to refer to another paragraph. The Honorable Minister of, and incidentally, not only do we have the roadmap, Honorable Speaker, but we also have the strategic plan for NCDs. It's all there, and all you have to do is get up and run with it. Hardly any tweaking. What I've noticed is the Honorable Minister of Finance is very much enamored, and rightly so, with the Presidential Commission for the Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases. Mr. Speaker, non-communicable diseases take as much as 78 to 80% of our deaths and morbidity. That is sickness or disease. We need to address it. Last year, on the 12th of September, that is Caribbean Wellness Day, there was launched at the International Convention Center the Presidential Commission for the Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases. This means, colleagues, that Guyana has now joined 10 other Caribbean countries in creating such a commission. It will give it certain powers. But what I've noticed, we do not seem to have the same vigor or the same energy in providing for this in the budget. This prompts me to think that this is a little cut and paste. You've looked at some of the things in Vision 2020. You've looked at some of the documents that we do have. For example, another very good document we have in here, the Commission on, or the National Commission for NCDs and the Strategic Plan for NCDs. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to encourage the Honorable Minister of Finance to address this matter more comprehensively. Obviously, there are certain weaknesses in his ministry, and I must note that there are two ministers to replace yours truly, so I do hope that they can put their heads together, and at least two of them are taking over a job that one man used to do, and I think that can be very well part of the problem, okay? So Minister of Finance is urged to look at the real needs of the people. Another point, Mr. Speaker, is this. Much of the interventions in the speech by the Minister of Finance, especially those on the universal health coverage for wellness of the nation on page 38, would need other support. For example, you need to have the human resource. To execute or to deliver these projects, these programs, these services. I do not notice anywhere in the speech much emphasis on training, and I've noticed not much training. For example, the expanded need for nurses. In the manifesto of the People's Progressive Party, we are demanding, we are calling, we are encouraging that we keep an entry limit,
Honourable Member, you have 5 minutes.
Entry limit, thank you, sir. An entry limit of, or an entry capacity of 250 nurses per year. I have looked quickly at the budget, and I've looked at the speech, and I do not see the necessary emphasis. And here again is where the Ministry of Finance could probably relook at some of its approaches in the past, because it was the Ministry of Finance which worked closely with the Ministry of Health and decided that the intervention into nursing training is critical. So we need, Mr. Speaker, to encourage the Ministry of Finance to recraft this budget, to put some more ideas into it. For example, the nursing school annex in Kingston. That is a very good place, well selected for quick adaptation, but it will cost some things. some things, some monies, some resources to get it up to par to keep in school, to keep in the classrooms 250 nurses yearly. I do not see that emphasis. I do not see that emphasis, and I do urge that we try to get more resources for the creation of the workforce. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I'd like to say that only recently another 100 of the Jagdeo scholars returned from Cuba. You've been given on a platter. You've been given on a platter. And previously to that, 500 came in. Most of these are doctors. So I'd like to encourage, the Minister of Finance and his colleague, the Honorable Minister of Health, to craft programs where these can be able to, these 500 doctors and more so, the 100 or so who came in recently, can be quickly infiltrated, deployed in the primary health care system. I do not see any provision
Honourable Member, you have
for
2 minutes.
doctors' quarters. I
You
do
have
not
2 minutes
see
more.
any provision, thank you, sir. I do not see much provision for capital, that is for provision of our housing. The regions, there is some, but not enough. The regions need to fight. The regions need to fight for that provision so that not only will the doctors be available, but they will be available to go to the regions and deliver services. Sir, I want to say that the PPPC has handed over a very robust health sector, which needs nurturing, still nurturing, and needs to be upkept and supported. I'd like to close by repeating what we said in the manifesto. We need you to have the specialty hospital completed and probably expanded. We need to have a 100-bed facility at Diamond to take pressure off of the Georgetown Hospital. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your indulgence, and I do hope that these points I brought to you will be able to create good food for thought, to fashion, to create a proper budget which is more thought out, more deep, and a deeper budget with more thought and more ideas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Honourable Member for his statement.